Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second edition of BS Best Says. Today I've brought a guest. Please introduce yourself.
Hi Wes, hi everybody. My name is Questionable Ole, or Ole for short, in this podcast, and I'm happy to be here.
So, what do you do? What kind of content do you create?
Oh, I just started recently, and you know, uh, not having any particular skills or anything artsy per se, I just chose the most lazy and straightforward, but at the same time overly saturated trope of let's play videos, video games, basically.
So, when it comes to Let's Play videos, of course, it's definitely a very viable market for YouTube. Been done plenty of times, still ways to do it innovatively. What kind of games do you prefer to play?
Ah, that's a good question. We had a discussion on the other server the other day on the topic of multiplayer or versus single player games. And it was very heated debate. And we actually are trying to do a podcast of our own on that topic specifically. But as to me, I prefer the single player games as they provide more immersion, I think, and atmosphere. And all I am trying to do with that is not to spoil it with my narration, basically.
That makes a lot of sense. For me specifically, I definitely prefer a more single player based experience. When it comes to gaming, for me, what I really prefer is a good story in a game. I prefer something that, let's say, it doesn't have to graphically be super great. That isn't my biggest priority, although I'm not really a fan of. If you go back like 20 years, what games looked like then, I'm not really a fan of that. But I guess that's just because of I'm only 20 years old, so I'm not used to how it looked back then.
Sure, we're spoiled basically by modern day graphics. Let's admit that.
Very much so. We're very much spoiled in that regard. But when it comes to just gaming in general, yeah, I think I can agree. Single player, it gives you more immersion. And when it comes to a game that I can play for dozens of hours, and I think that's what I really like in a game. I like to be able to play it for a super long amount of time. It's just like a role playing game, something like Elder Scrolls
For
or a
sure,
Fallout. Yeah, something like that. That's definitely something I could get into.
I can understand. It gives you a kinda open-ish environment in a sense that you're free roaming about and are not necessarily locked into some kind of rigid, sequence. Which feels good, which feels like you have a lot of freedom personally. Though this may be a drawback, I think, for let's play videos, or if you would be doing some kind of, you know, huge let's play on that Skyrim, for example, as uh, your audience might have different views and preferences along the way, which would not coincide with how you are approaching, certain scenarios. So that might be a detriment of a sorts. And they just say, okay, even though the game's cool, even though I'm enjoying the let's player, but I'm not really 100% on board with choices and maybe style, and they will just, not continue to engage.
Absolutely. When it comes to that sort of thing, let's play in with a game like Skyrim. It becomes a okay, although what you feel like you're doing as a player may be super interesting and you don't mind the traveling when it comes to a video and people watching, unless the person recording can do something that whole time, traveling and such, to make it interesting, you definitely lose a lot of people. And I feel like that's why when it comes to Twitch, which is getting more popular over time, still continues to grow. That's why when it comes to Let's Playing, it's taken more multiplayer stuff, more the single player RPG stuff, and taking it to that platform because you can interact with people while you do that. That way, when you're in the filler parts of the game for a video, it wouldn't be filler for the stream because you're still interacting with them and all that good stuff. So when it comes to Let's Playing on YouTube, it's definitely a pick your game wisely.
Sure. And first, can you tell me, have you done any Let's Plays on Twitch platform?
I have not. I haven't had the capability to be on Twitch, but I have done Let's Plays on YouTube. I've been I did Let's Plays for a lot of 2016 and a lot of 2017. I always wanted to do a variety of stuff. When it comes to me as a content creator, I definitely want to do gaming, but when it comes to what I want to do, I don't feel like it works best on YouTube. I've done Assassin's Creed, Batman, Arkham Asylum. I've done funnier games that went over better, like Elmo's Letter Adventure and Elmo's Number Journey. Very bad games. One of them crashed, but people like them a lot just because they're short games. There's not much to it. It's just you being you and being funny at the same time. It was definitely a learning experience.
Oh yeah, I mean, my channel is considerably small now, and even though I have 20 plus videos with, let's say, all two completed Let's Plays and one in process, I do see that there is a significantly less engagement than I would see from fellow small YouTube Let's Players. And I'm still like kind of trying to figure out, was it the peak of the game, or was it just, the lack of experience at those first attempts? So I'm just kind of paddling here.
I feel like, as someone that has been a part of the same community we're both in, the YouTubers community, I've been a part of that community for over 2 years now, and something I see frequently happen with small creators, new creators, they'll go in, they'll try something for a little bit, and when nobody's not guilty of this. We all want to be super successful immediately. We want to see results immediately. We want that instant feedback immediately. And although that isn't how things will ever go for most people, there always is going to be the lucky few. But for most people, it's a long, hard road. And especially for a market like the Let's Play, and it's definitely you have to learn the different ways to try and get people to look up your video. Search engine optimization is something you hear a lot, SEO, and it's definitely a very important part of it, but very few people understand SEO, including me. I'm not a master at it, even after being with the community for 2 years, but there's a lot you can pick up in time, and I feel like it's definitely discouraging for a lot of creators, because I've seen a lot of creators come and go. A lot of people have come and gone, and it's really sad to see so many creators go, because not everyone's bad. It's not so much, oh, you're not getting views because you're bad. You're not getting the views because you just haven't mastered the advertising style that will get the YouTube algorithm to work well with you.
Sure.
And a lot of that does boil down to SEO.
And I would agree with you that that's, one of the major parts of it. But surely the skill, or I don't know, innate charisma, or however you want to say about what makes person more likable, certainly plays a role. And I'm not saying that, this is the defining factor between somebody who has it and somebody who has not, because that's something which can be learned. At least I believe that. But some people use that to their advantage from the get-go, and some people need significantly, more, time to refine themselves into something which is truly, targeted well in YouTube.
Yeah, and I feel like, especially in that regard, it's like your first videos are always going to be your worst videos. You're going to look back on those videos in a few months and you're going to think how bad they are. But the thing is, hopefully when you're thinking that, it's because in those few months, you've continued to adapt and improve in these ways. And it just it's very slow for a lot of people, and that's not a bad thing. Well, it is for the creator. It's the longer it takes, it's obviously the more it gets to you, but it's
I
just a hard road.
understand. Yeah, and also the games, the choices we make as a creators or as let's players, they do matter. Somebody can do well. Let's step away from this existential sort of discussion and do a more specific example with somebody who, not like us, would do a multiplayer games, right? Just a snippet of funny moments from, let's say, Fortnite or any other game like League of Legends. What will happen is, at least in my experience, people I communicate with on Discord servers, they started and surpassed me as a single player let's play creator quite more like swiftly, and I we like have a consensus that that's generally just because that community is more engaged and wide. So the Fortnite has a lot more people going for it than I would say Skyrim as well. you know, and because of that, and because the videos tend to be short, because matches themselves are short, it sort of also contributes to, okay, this video is only 2.5 minutes long. I don't know this guy, he doesn't have much views, but it probably won't be as bad. 2.5 minutes I can waste them, and they will give it a shot more willingly than a video of 15 or 25 minutes of somebody equally who has no views but is trying to play a single player experience.
Absolutely, when it comes to viewers and viewers' time, like if they're into Fortnite or any of those games, it just boils down to I can watch about 6 or 7 of these 2.5 minute videos that are cut, they're edited, they're the best moments compared to a 15-minute single player video that has, for the most part, everything in it. Using Skyrim, just the beginning first 15 minutes, that's pretty much just listening to the dialogue in the game, maybe a little bit of you talking, but for the first 15 minutes, you definitely get more bang for your buck with Fortnite or any other current multiplayer games.
So that's kind of is a self-defining prophecy of sorts, and the bane of small YouTubers geared for single player games, I would think. And I mean,
definitely,
it's a small, but it's a still a quite feelable thorn in the ass, if you pardon my expression.
yep. And going to your point, like when it comes to choosing what game you should do, it definitely boils down to, is a lot happening in a short amount of time? Will you be able to keep the long durations entertaining? Or will it just be something like a Skyrim where not a lot's going on a lot of the time and you have to fill that air, and it's not, oh, you're going to run out of things to say eventually?
Sooner than later, with me at least.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, it's a much sooner than later situation. That's why when it comes to like a successful Skyrim or Fallout Let's Play, unless you're a super big name already, you're definitely going to want to cut out a lot of content. That's why Let's Playing on YouTube is a very complicated, very oversaturated market.
True. Some people, for example, invent gimmicks like alter egos, when they make fun of themselves in a different voice. That is viable. At least that's viable to get attention. I don't know if that's very sustainable in the long run, but still, that's what gets you past the initial barrier.
I definitely think if you can give yourself an alter ego, and I think the thing is, it doesn't need to be, I think the best alter ego is still you, but it's you ramped up so high, like a Jacksepticeye or a PewDiePie, and some of these people, they're like guilty of overreacting, and they'll get criticism for that, but it's stuff, exaggerations, overreactions, and all the other people that do more alter ego stuff that it separates you from everyone else. So in a way, at least temporarily, it works.
Well, if you can pull that off, yes. I tried to do that in the first several videos, and it sounded fake as my grandma's, I don't know, tits.
Absolutely, and that's definitely a criticism a lot of these big people still get, because if you sound fake, people will point it out, and a lot of people, they just don't want to be a part of that.
Exactly.
It's just a very, very... I feel bad for Let's Players, and that's one of the reasons I stopped doing Let's Plays on YouTube. It's just, I don't think when it comes to the YouTube market, I'm not the best person to try and step in that range. Not under the current circumstances you have to work with.
I understand. Though I would be tempted to try the Twitch platform. Though, you know what? I keep asking the same question. So suppose you are the guy who just wants to start out, right? And I don't understand how, without any followers on Twitch or subscribers on YouTube for that matter, going live on either of the platforms would do you any good. Who would notice that?
I feel like when it comes to if you're live, I think it definitely helps for like your first stream. Like, let's say I was going to, or you were going to do a first stream. You definitely want your friends to tune in. You want to not start at 0. I feel like starting at 0, which you're going to start at 0 for the first minute or so, but once you get the number up, as long as you categorize it on Twitch correctly, you're going to pop up in that game. And the higher number view you have, the more likely people are to see you and see that game up there on the Twitch system. And if they're interested in the game, and then they click on that and they see the people playing it, and your thumbnail or whatever they call it on Twitch stands out, then they'll tune into you. Or maybe they'll just see a small creator and be like, okay, let's give this person a chance. And definitely a fact that I've noticed from a lot of people that have gone from YouTube to Twitch, especially if money is a concern for... because money is a concern for a lot of people, and some people, they do it for money, and that's not a bad thing. I'm definitely in content creation to make a profit down the road. It's not something I'm going to rush, but it's definitely a motive I have. That
nothing bad about that.
Twitch, you're going to make more money quicker than on YouTube, especially recent YouTube and how their demonetization thing has been going. So, I guess for Twitch, it's just the biggest thing for a Twitch streamer is consistency, and that can be said the same about YouTube. Consistency is a big part of both platforms. You need to be around a lot, but especially with Twitch, it's a lot of just how many hours have you been doing Twitch in a week or a month or whatever duration you want to call it, and hope that that consistency is good enough. Like, and especially with time zones, you want to time that out right and hope that your audience, because you want to stream when you want your audience to be watching.
Exactly. That was what I would about to ask of you. Since I'm not familiar with Twitch, all that, because I haven't just used it for viewing videos. I've been going to YouTube all of my life, basically. And so I don't know. When the stream ends, does it just disappear into the ether and it's not recoverable?
No, it still exists. There is a video on demand that you have the option to let stick around, and For me personally, I really prefer my streamers I would want to watch to keep their video on demand, and you can lock that and make it to where, oh, you have to subscribe and pay money to see the video on demand, but I'd prefer you just keep it out there for the open, because for me, and I'm not a majority person in this, I'm a minority, and I like watching your backlog of content. I like watching someone's backlog, so I'd want to see those previous streams so I can get more of a taste of how you actually are and not just the few minutes I may have caught at the end that made me intrigued in your stream.
Hey, exactly. I mean, if I tuned into the episode number 4, I would want to go to see, yeah, and I like it, yeah, and I would want to go to see number 1, 2, and 3 as well.
Yep, and that's why, like, the video on demand, like, the only thing I dislike, and I don't know if this is how it still is, but I know for the longest time, the video on demand was, okay, we'll keep this up, but Twitch is going to remove it in a certain amount of time, like a few months or something. I really dislike that. I get why if it's like a 4-hour stream, you should have watched it and if before it's been like 5 months later, but what if I'm just to the channel and I'm really hardcore on I want to go watch the backlog? Twitch on that end, I don't know if it does it now, but it didn't used to let you go back that long for most channels. I don't know if that's also an option or not. I haven't really dug too deep into that.
Yeah.
But it was a weird thing for me.
Well, you know, as a technical guy, I can tell you that that's just a cost savings from the Twitch platform side. They don't have to pay as much for the storage to store all that content. And they just let it deprecate itself, and probably they're deleting it, I would think. Or maybe that's again conjecture, because neither you nor I do know about it, but maybe they open some kind of paid options to keep your videos longer so that you can get money from them back. I don't know. Would make sense, basically.
Maybe. I just find it weird regardless. I can understand if it's a space thing and you want to save money. That definitely would make a lot more sense to me that they're doing it to save money. But if they're just doing it because they don't feel like people would care, I know I'm definitely in the minority. Not many people want to go like 6 months, a year back on a streamer and be like, okay, what games have they played? Maybe I want to watch this stream from a year ago. But that's the kind of person I am.
You think you're in the minority? Really?
I feel like it is a minority based on people I've talked to in the last 2 years. Okay. I don't think I'm alone, but I definitely think it's not everyone when they tune into a streamer wants to look at their backlog and watch everything they possibly can.
You're not alone in this podcast, basically. That's what I can tell you.
I feel like this is good. It's unity in a backlog.
Yeah, I mean, consistency as well. Maybe some videos they are not as proud of, but I think you can always delete on demand those pieces which you don't want to keep.
Absolutely. And I feel like that's an important thing. Like, going back to YouTube for a moment, it's like, okay, I see a lot of people making a big deal of, oh, you shouldn't delete your first videos because you can let people see how bad you once were and now you're not that bad anymore. But at the same time, for me, it's a personal worry. Okay, what if this is their first video they're seeing of me and they think that I'm still this bad?
Yes, that also, I don't know. I'm on the fence about deleting the earlier sort of bloopers or keeping them as a reminder. I'm really on the fence. I mean, it probably will depend further down the line on how you feel about it when you have grown. Because currently, you just keep them if you are a small YouTuber, and that's it.
Yep. And I feel like there's not a right or wrong answer to that question of should you delete your first videos or not. Like, if it bothers you, go ahead. If it doesn't bother you, I'm sure it really doesn't hurt much. Because if someone... Really just judges a channel off one video and then permanently that's gone forever and they don't realize that was your first video and you've have hopefully dozens or hundreds more by then that you're probably not the same quality you were when you first started. I'd like to think anyway.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So moving on from Let's Play talk, are you a superhero fan at all?
Well, I would say yes. However, there is a big fat asterisk in the sense that I did not at all in any shape or form follow the original comic books. But I think I'm pretty well versed, at least in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Okay, this is perfect. So you will have heard the news that Stan Lee has passed away on Monday.
Yes, rest in peace, Stanley.
Yeah, that was a really sad thing on a Monday to start the week off. Cause I
True.
just feel like Stan Lee has been such a critical part of the superhero genre as a whole for decades.
Sure, he defined a lot of characters and series in both, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Marvel and DC campuses.
Absolutely. And so now that he's gone, there's definitely a hole there, but I feel like Stan Lee being 95 years old when he passed away, he definitely helped teach people. He was definitely making sure that they're out ahead. Like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, for example, he knows that just because he's gone, the Marvel Cinematic Universe isn't going to go suddenly downhill. I feel like he's planned all this out. He has this everything that people can do, he's helped set up. And I feel like that's a pretty good thing. I feel like we will definitely miss his contributions, but I hope the Marvel Cinematic Universe continues to go strong.
I think they have
And
a
it's good.
good foundation, in terms of all the accumulated knowledge of the comic books and their, if I can say so myself, convoluted timelines, which are just branching off in all directions. And there is so much inspiration directors can grab from either of those, timelines to bring them to big screens. I mean, the potential is way far away from being exhausted. So that's yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I
And
feel like something I've heard for a while is people saying when will the superhero movie trend die off? Because it's been before the superhero trend, there was another trend, and there was a trend before that, and a genre always kind of fades away for a bit. But I really feel like the superhero genre trend is a very profitable trend, and it's still growing. We're still growing right now. The Marvel Cinematic Universe, Infinity War, for example, very profitable movie. And I just feel like they're going to continue going down that road.
and also they have accumulated just from doing these last installments, of all those movies, which are most of them pretty good. They, in terms of special effects, especially, they have accumulated this knowledge of how a good-looking and feeling, movie should be done. And I sort of think that they have a template now of sorts to for a success in any comic book. Of course, unless the writing is especially bad, then we might have something of a mediocre experience. But still,
Absolutely. And for me personally, I've liked pretty much every Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. I didn't like a couple of them when I first watched them when I was younger, but when I grew older and I rewatched them, I liked them a lot more. Like the first Captain America movie, for example, and the first Incredible Hulk movie. I wasn't really a fan of those movies when I was growing up, but when I watched them this year, I was a bigger fan of the Captain America movie, and I wasn't as harsh on the Incredible Hulk movie. It's
it's
just
it's like with raisins, when in teens you don't really like them, most of them, either ways, but when you grow up, they're actually quite nice.
I agree. And I feel
Anyways,
like now we have a because Stan Lee, we know he's going to do a cameo in the next Avengers movie. We know he'll be in that. And there's two other possible Stan Lee cameos we could have. We have the Spider-Man Far From Home movie, and we have the Captain Marvel movie. I don't know how far along they were in production and all that film stuff to if they had gotten along far enough to do the Stan Lee cameo. I don't know if that's something they do right at the end or right at the beginning or how they do that for each movie.
yeah, yeah.
Considering it's, for the most part, I mean, Stan Lee cameos happen randomly and they're not really super. It's kind of like a quick transition from one big scene to another big scene.
I seem to remember reading something on Reddit thread somewhere deep in the internet that there might be a conspiracy theory that Stan Lee was actually playing some kind of a superhero or like a person who can time travel or something. That was very uh, un, unimaginable, but the person outlined that there is indeed some kind of character in the comic books which would be capable of doing all of these things, like impersonating multiple uh, like Stan Lee, appearances that would fit. But I don't think it will go that far. And also Stan Lee, cameos, especially after his death, has sparked some controversial discussions on whether Marvel would consider using CGI in the future.
I was actually going to bring that up in a moment. I personally am not a fan of CGI stuff. They've done it with Star Wars, and I'll quickly go on the Star Wars rant. Star Wars needs to move on. It needs to completely move the fuck on. It needs to stop being in the 1980s and move on, get new characters completely, stop talking about the old stuff, and move on. Do something completely new. Stop retelling the same story. Just do something new. That's all
They
I
might
want from
they might
Star
have an
Wars, and then I'll watch
inspiration
another
from
movie.
the. Sorry, yeah, continue.
No, I'm good. Go ahead.
I mean, the creators of the Star Wars, like Disney, has the rights now, correct? So they might
Yes.
do an inspiration from, online multiplayer game. What's it called? Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic? No, Star Wars: The Old Republic. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean that introduce content every now and then, so it's possible. I think they're introducing content into the past of the timeline, but I'm not sure. And anyways, CGI. My take on the CGI in Star Wars is that uh, it was dictated mainly by the storyline, rather than just having it for the sake of having it. Maybe they could have been without those characters, but they were in previous films, and it kind of is a link to the past, so maybe it's acceptable. But with completely emulating that person living a normal character for cameos, that is bad taste. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I definitely don't think they should use Stan Lee in CGI. I feel like once their last live filming of a cameo has been done, that should be the last one. And if I could make a request from that, I would like them on the last one to film something a little bit extra with that cast, maybe in the extra additional scenes in a Blu-ray. Maybe we have that and have a memorial type thing for Stan Lee. It definitely something to have in the extra scenes. You wouldn't want that to actually be in the movie. Well, some people would, but
I
for
think
the
someone,
movie's sake.
I think someone in the Reddit today. I don't remember the subreddit names, but the person suggested like they made a compilation of would be movie about Stan Lee, and the starring actor would be, I don't remember his surname, but I think it's the guy who played the main character in Breaking Bad,
Uh,
the Walter
I
White.
yeah, I don't know that actor's name. I wasn't a Breaking Bad fan. I didn't like that show personally, and I get a lot of slack from that because I didn't like Breaking Bad. And people say I should have gave it a bigger chance. But yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, so and that instantly in a matter of hours or so got like 3,000 upvotes basically.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely a direction they could go. I'm sure people would watch it. When it comes to Marvel stuff, do you just watch the Marvel movies or do you watch the Marvel TV shows as well, whether that be on Netflix or be on?
So primarily movies, but my wife and I, we have watched the first season of Jessica Jones on Netflix. I think it's from DC Universe, and Jessica is part of the Justice League, if I'm not mistaken. And but she is a basically strong, supernaturally strong woman, and she has her own show. And the first season is amazing. She has her own sort of bad, half fucked up life, and she tries to deal with trauma caused to her by another superhuman. Uh, don't remember his name. Killjoy, probably, and he had and has a mind control ability. And he was mind controlling her prior to events in the season one, and now she's dealing with consequences, and he's in jail, and he just got out.
Yeah. When it comes to Jessica Jones, I'm pretty sure that's a Marvel show and not DC.
Okay,
I think.
maybe.
Maybe. I'm pretty sure. Someone will know. Someone will know. Not us. I haven't watched any superhero shows from Netflix, so I I haven't really dug deep in the Netflix shows at all. I'm like completely behind on everything that's exclusive to Netflix. It's really sad. I need to get going with that. There's a lot of shows to watch on Netflix.
Oh yeah, but they remove them. For example, we just
They do.
wanted to watch some movie, some series, and they got removed in mid, basically season. That was really weird.
Last week I was talking about the new Disney Plus streaming service that's gonna have some Star Wars content, some Marvel content, and I brought up how I don't feel like it's gonna be worth it for many people. From your perspective, will you be getting Disney Plus down the road?
I don't think so. Not yet, anyways. I mean, I think I'll be able to withstand all of the allure, unless it will be like super interesting in advertising. But for now, I'm not actually hyped. For some reason, I have Netflix and I have the big screen. It's more than enough for me now. What are your thoughts?
Right now, it's just there's no way to convince me to get Netflix Plus. Like, I'm a really big Loki fan, and they're doing a Loki show on the Netflix Plus when that releases next year. But I don't like Loki enough that, okay, let me get Disney Plus and spend money on that every month.
Right. Yes. And
And
I just
especially with Star Wars.
sorry, I just looked up. Jessica Jones is part of Marvel. My mistake.
Not a problem, mistakes happen. And I don't know, I'm just not convinced on Disney Plus. It's not something I could see. They have to do something bigger. Then, okay, we're going to use minor characters. We're not going to use a big character. We're just going to use minor characters and give them their own movie or their own TV show, excuse me, and expect people to go into that. I feel like you need to raise the stakes a little bit more if you want people to. Because when it comes to streaming services, you have Netflix, you have Hulu, you have all these things. If you want to get yourself into that mix, you need to provide enough compelling things to make it worth it to people because some people will have to be like, okay, this, however much Disney Plus ends up costing, maybe they have to get rid of Hulu to get Disney Plus. You need to be able to compete that way.
Exactly. Well, maybe some direction they could use is if they have access to comic book, intellectual properties, they could explore some lesser known, just pure adaptations, not without the known universes or series and exploring minor characters, like you say, but with the entirely new, but maybe less known series of comics or something like that. Also, we haven't mentioned the Amazon Prime streaming service. I know it doesn't have much going on, but I watched The Tick on it. I don't know if you're familiar with either the movie, the cartoon, or the series on Netflix, or the series on the Amazon Prime, but they are hilarious. The cartoon was old one in the 1990s, maybe even end of 80s, and the Tick is superhero, indestructible, with a blue costume, with antennas, and he has no common sense. And he, for some reason, took a liking for some normal fellow who is scared of life, Arthur. He's pretty normal, sane human, and all this superhero crap seems insane to him. And he forced Arthur to be his sidekick. Yeah.
I can't say I've actually heard of that show, but I will definitely tune in sometime. Maybe see if it's to my liking. I will definitely do that.
It's comedy.
You know, a show on Netflix I like, and it's okay, most people like it, but I came in super late. I had never seen an episode before. I really like The Office.
I don't think I have seen that, actually.
Yeah, I hadn't seen it until this year, and I really enjoyed it. It's hilarious to me, but humor is very subjective, even more subjective than a lot of different genres. And for some people, it's just... For some people, some comedy is less entertaining than others. But for me, The Office nails the kind of comedy I like. They really hit it home.
Oh, sorry, I misheard you. The Office with that guy who played Johnny Smart, or how is it called? Yeah, I know the series with Dwayne Shute, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I completely misheard that the first time you said the title. That is hilarious. Yes. I mean,
absolutely.
we watched with my wife the whole series, and that was just absolutely best time of our lives.
Do you think as the seasons went forward that it got better or worse?
It evolved, and that's a good thing for a series. They didn't remain stagnant. For example, the evolution of all the dynamics between Dwayne and what's his name, the one who married the receptionist,
Pam.
So Pam, and she married
Pam
who?
and
yes, so
Pam
that guy who is now the Jack Ryan. That guy.
Yeah, that guy.
So the evolution of relationship between Dwayne and that guy is nice to watch. I mean, they at first they don't really like one another, but then they grow, fond of doing nasty things to one another, and ultimately became, comrades. Even it's very good. And do you know that The Office was actually the United Kingdom show, directed by Ricky Gervais, comedian, and he was starring the role of director there in himself, but it was not as popular as the American version of The Office.
Yeah, I was aware that there was a UK version, but I had never really heard anything substantial about it, so I've never actually watched it. So it definitely makes sense that it wasn't as popular as the I guess, American version of The Office.
Yeah.
So, we've talked about multiple topics, mostly light-hearted topics. I have a hard hitter for you.
Oh no. Come on, hit it.
This is, uh, unfortunately, this is a America-specific topic, which I think it'd be a lot more interesting if it was worldwide, but for the news, I seen there was an article today on 1 in 4 Americans now belong to no religion, a trend fueling a lot of church closings and mergings. And while I don't really have a stake in this battle, I thought it was pretty interesting to see the stats that they've compiled for people that are leaving religion and how that business, because there is a business aspect to a church.
So hey, the number now is higher than it was before, right? So the number of actual leavers, or I don't know, atheists or newborn non-believers is greater than it was in the past. Is that correct?
Well, it was, but non-believers is currently trending upwards for now. It appears the younger generation, and that was the thing I seen, the younger generation of people like 90s, 2000s, 1980s even, it's those people that are primarily going from, oh, I'm religious, to, oh, I don't really have a religion, this isn't really something I prioritize in life, or I don't really feel heavily about. And there was a big breakdown, people trying to be like, okay, they put an education thing, but that really wasn't. None of the really big stats they gave was really telling. It just pretty much breaks down pretty much a population in general. So that wasn't really the compelling thing. For me, the compelling part was it seems younger people are not interested in religion as older people were. What do you think that is?
So I was gonna ask your take first, but okay, let me start. I think that younger contemporary generation, it does not really find comfort in some higher being telling them what to do, essentially. They don't subscribe to the idea that there is some higher entity which could be directing, your actions, and which is the source of all the moral fiber you hold dear to yourself. I think that kind of impedes on a mindset of a free thinker, and detracts from freedom of choice that we are now, grew up with. And it's really a age-old, if I may say so, concept, which does not provide the same psychological and soul-soothing, uh, atmosphere for the generation. So they went away from that into something maybe more down to earth, but at the same time more free, seeking, I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, I think I agree with that for the most part. I definitely feel like all of that holds up pretty well for why it's going down. And for like me personally, I guess I would fall in no religion. Although for me, it's just not something I care about. Really, it's not something that it doesn't really impact my life. The most I do is I put blame on it. When something bad happens in life, I just put blame on it. And that's mostly for comedy's sake. I don't actually really think that, oh, someone out of spite in the air is like, you know what? Bam, bad things happen to you right now. But,
I mean, really, religious people is religion is good in of itself if it provides good things for the person who subscribes to it, and that's it. You take your if you enjoy all the, let's say, ritualistic aspects of one or the other religion, right? If it gives you order and meaning to your life, or at least a part of that, and you feel that it's like a, yeah, like a compass of sorts, then go ahead and practice it. Nobody is It's true for all of those major religions, like Christianity, Hinduism, and Islam. It's fine as long as it's benign, and as long as you don't go and publicly try to subscribe anyone other than yourself to it.
Absolutely, I feel like I 100% agree with you. For me, as well as seemingly you, it's like, okay, just don't push religion in my face. Don't push your religion in my face, and, we're all good. You can feel whatever religion you think is best for you, and if that gives you more comfort, that gives you a good feeling inside of you, that is 100% fine. Being religious isn't a bad thing as long as it doesn't hurt other people. And I
I
feel like that's the biggest core of it.
I gladly agree. However, it's not as clean cut. Let me give you one example from Europe. We have freedom of borders there in the European Union, and Turkey, and through Turkey, all major Islamic sort of countries is a gateway of well, not even I'm not even talking about refugees. I'm talking about just people legally migrating, into Europe, and especially as I've lived 3 years in the United Kingdom, especially in UK, they want to go there, and they do go there. So people are there legally, and they are forming, uh, let's say, Islamic minorities, like communities. But then they grow bigger, and then they grow bigger in a prominent city, and a mayor and all the, well, not all, but not a small portion of city council are of Islamic religion confession. And then something happens. They try to, not to force, but they try to quietly subvert United Kingdom's traditional values and inject Islamic uh, sort of laws and directives to be more favorable for Islamic religion specifically, and that, I think, is a major concern in general, for countries who are accepting of people and refugees and legally alike, and I think that kind of behavior should be discouraged somehow.
I agree, but especially the further away from, like, America is a great example of you can be non-religious and that's okay. I mean, I live in Tennessee, for example, and whether or not you're aware, it's a very Bible Belt state. It's a very Christianity like state, but like
I am, yeah.
even if you even if people around you know that you're not really religious, they're not going to force it down your throat. But when you go to like Europe and places like that, especially the deeper you go, they will try and low key force you to do it and feel this way, or at least make them believe you feel this way. And that I don't really know how that can be solved without major changes that for some countries is very, very hard to do.
Exactly. I actually have a dream that someday on Earth we'll have one single government, or like a consortium, of council of countries, which will essentially govern the meaningful aspects. For example, resource redistribution, right, and all the really important stuff centrally, but then leave all the cultural stuff to the states, let's say. I mean, the member territories. That would, to me, is something like an ideal of the most rational use of our time and resources, and as a consequence of that, intellectual capacity for, you don't have to do any wars. You can devote all your time for technological advancements, let's say, or arts, or meditation, or both of those. I mean, all of those. And at the same time, all the member states could keep their traditions, of course, and their identity at the same level, without really assimilating with one the other.
Yeah, and I really like the idea. I like the idea of right now we have the United Nations, but it doesn't really do something on that level. But maybe if the United Nations evolved and continued to evolve into a path like that, I think it could be a really good idea. The only problem I see is you have ego involved with, like, would Kim Jong-un of North Korea be okay with that? Would Vladimir Putin of Russia be okay with that? Would Donald Trump be okay with that in America? There's a lot of egos around.
For sure. That's not a favorable factor, let's say. And part of that vision of mine is actually it would be good that even the individual countries would start to implement something like that. And that is currently majority of politicians are at best coming from the law schools background, maybe political sciences, if you're lucky. What we really need to do is to engage with more scientists and people who know stuff about, not the people who talk. So that way, more prudent decisions would be made.
Absolutely. And I hate to say it, this is probably going to be the most controversial statement on this episode, but I feel like we can't reach a point like that until we can get all these problems around the world resolved. And unfortunately, the way the world is right now, the only way that some of these things are gonna calm down is when we have another world war. And while that would be a horrible thing, I think that's the only way it's
I
gonna
do
calm.
understand what you're saying. So let me say that there are two possible, at least to my mind, scenarios, and the war would be one side of one of those scenarios. So the war would be something which represents a global collapse of some sort. It might be a war, it might be economical, right? It might be inequality grows so far and so wide that there will be just uprising, right? Not a war like between countries, but maybe a war, many wars inside of the. So we have to reach a low level somehow. And the second one is just we wait for for all the non-prudent leaders to die, and maybe we'll have better. Meanwhile, we can probably do something about the generation, so they don't end up kind of like Kim Jong-un's and Putin's and Donald Trump's. But yeah, bide our time.
Yeah, it's definitely waiting could be the answer. Waiting and hoping that things on its own moves in a more peaceful direction so everyone can work together. Because if Earth is going to sustain itself for the longest amount of time, there needs to be a lot more teamwork going on than what's going on right now.
Exactly.
And right now, like, let's say for you, like, if you had kids, not saying you will or won't, just like your hypothetical kids, maybe their kids, they don't have a healthy Earth to live in now.
Oh, for sure. I mean, on the tangent we are currently in, for example, with global warming, it's not sustainable for now direction. So there will be a time where if nothing is significantly done. The lowest, I don't remember the name of the nation, but there is a nation which has the highest elevation of 3 meters around above the sea level, and it's an island. They will be consumed. They will be consumed in the coming years. Not like 10, 20, but 50, 60. So if that doesn't hit home, I don't know what will.
Exactly, I 100% agree. But as we've been saying, it's just we have to wait and see. Maybe when something like that happens, because people don't listen, maybe it'll get better. And that's all we can hope for, really.
Yeah. Although in current climate, I know Donald Trump is controversial, and maybe some of his decisions aren't there for the better. I don't know. I'm not judging, but certainly some of his decisions regarding the global policies, even such as tariffs and pulling out of the Paris Agreement of climate accord, that objectively cannot be treated as good. I mean, however well you can spin something.
Yep, I agree.
Anyways.
I also don't really have a strong opinion on him, but it's not good or bad, it's just, for me, I don't like taking sides. Like, everyone wants to have this label of, oh, I'm on this side or this side. For me, it's just like, I go off, okay, in this scenario, this person is correct or he's wrong. But in this other scenario, he may be the opposite. That's why I don't like picking one side to stay on, because nobody's gonna be 100% what you want.
Also, I feel, pardon me for jabbing at the United States, but I feel that you could use a system with more than two parties, really. I mean, surely within the parties, there are significantly varied views which would warrant, formation of like third, fourth parties. That would bring more diversity, but less polarization in the world.
I agree, but especially, like, let's use the biggest example for the president, where the most people are voting. There are independent parties, but because they're just called independent parties, they don't really get the same amount of advertising or financial backing or votes in general than a Democrat or a Republican would get.
Yeah, but Bernie Sanders is a bit too old, in my opinion. But still, yes, I understand.
Yep. But yeah, we definitely agree on that. There needs to be more than two parties that are official parties that get the same financial backing as the others do.
Yeah, and also, please somehow lose the gerrymandering, because that's just, I don't know, that's pervasive. You are getting more views. Sorry, views. I'm a YouTuber. You're getting more. Because of how you draw on the map. That's ridiculous.
Yep, absolutely. I agree. Well, I feel like we've run this topic home, and I feel like we've gone on a pretty good amount of time, so please tell us where people can find you.
Alright, so if you go on YouTube and just try to search for questionable Ole with a space between them, you will hopefully find my Let's Play channel, fledgling channel with interesting videos. I position myself as a person who is extremely calm, and I've been known to be called that guy on horse tranquilizers, because I don't exhibit much emotions, even when I was playing quite a difficult platformer game where I ended up dying over 3,000 times in the course of my Let's Play. So, and they just say that I don't lose my cool, but on the flip side, I don't exhibit much of other emotions as well.
Definitely, and your links will also be in the description down below. And 3,000 deaths is a lot of deaths. I'd just like to point that out. That's like me. That's me playing a game. I'm really bad at games.
Oh, believe me, it was quite a challenge. And at some point I cried a bit, but that's fine.
Have you played the first Super Mario Bros. Game?
I don't, at least not to the extent of the full game experience, no. Have you?
I died on the first level.
Oh,
Unironically, I was just that bad. And a couple people definitely to this day point that out because it was recorded. I did upload it. It was me trying to play the game and I died on the first level. But yeah, they can definitely find your channel.
yes.
Obviously, very LP channel. And I've watched a couple videos going into this. I did watch a couple videos and I enjoyed it. I don't think it was bad at all. So I
Well, thank
would
you very much,
recommend
sir.
people to go check you out. I think that's going to wrap up the episode. My name is Wes.
Thank you, Wes, and thanks for having me.
Thank you, and we are done.